Welcome, our fellow lovers of love, to this episode of Late Night Love. Tonight we're talking about love, how to find it, and where to find it. Or more specifically, finding your tribe, how to build your genuine connections. We're going to discuss that to start. And then we've got our normal, our normal life kind of love questions. Questions about this, parenting. We got some parenting questions, Roblox, teen movies. We talk about adult men that were angry at their moms, and someone who's afraid of their really bright son. If you're afraid of your really bright children, I think maybe there's something else there. So we'll talk about that as we get to it. But before we start all that, we're going to talk about finding your tribe. And I actually found this because I think this is something you recently can actually quite relate to. Over the last year or so, you've really worked very hard to kind of, find your tribe and in the process, maybe find a bit about yourself. So I think that's been it's been a nice journey. So I figured this is a good opportunity for us to kind of talk about that and relate that with our audience.
Yes, I recently, about a year and a half ago, I started going to church. And I wanted to connect with some of the women there. And I started by asking people out to coffee, to a neighborhood coffee shop. Everybody knows. And some of them worked out, and some of them didn't, and there's 3 I meet every couple weeks.
Yeah.
And that, and within a month, I mean, that's a lot of socializing, just with one. And now I have my my Alcoholics Anonymous group that I'm connected with. So, but we text a lot.
Yeah, I thought maybe it's my memory. I thought it started with the Alcoholics Anonymous and then it evolved to church. But maybe I thought.
Well, that's a 35. That's a 35-year journey.
But that's its own discovery, right? How it takes. Sometimes the journeys aren't necessarily short. You're not going to necessarily find your truth in 2 or 3 months or 2 or 3 years.
No. First, I had to accept there was a God, and that He wasn't out to get me. That took a couple years.
Yeah. And sometimes
to really be open to a loving, caring God.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of work to get from one place to another, on yourself. And so that's
Oh, yeah, I had the rest of the steps. I got to do a moral inventory and make amends. Woo-hoo.
Yeah.
You learn a lot about yourself that way.
But but you understood your need for connection. And we've...
recently, yes, I had realized I was, I had isolated myself for a long time with my depression. I don't know what happened. Why? Is it a medication, layering? I don't know, but I am more able to be social. I think I was working on, I felt crippling and social anxiety for the longest time. And I didn't know what to say. I couldn't get beyond, just light pitter patter, But over time, I've learned basically ask people about themselves, talk about them.
Yeah.
All
right, so we'll skip the breaking the ice, because that's what we're kind of talking about, right? We're talking about breaking the ice. It's actually a difficult thing to do, especially if you've isolated yourself for a long period of time. For whatever reason, it's not always deliberately isolating yourself. Sometimes it's just circumstance. You can get isolated, right? You spend a lot of time working, and you just don't have a lot of time, or you don't make enough time to socialize because you're tired. You've got kids to raise, and next thing you know, it's 20 years later since you've actually kind of had your own social life outside of your family unit, right? It happens far more often than I think a lot of us realize. Maybe the old days where people would have their bowling leagues and their game night and their knitting
Yeah.
clubs, and I think maybe
They
these
would
people,
socialize. They had something going on. Yeah.
yeah, that once a week card game for everybody would come over, or the once a year hunting trip for all their friends, and those things had more value, I think, than even they realized. I don't think they realized the value of those things at the time. I just think those are things that you did to pass the time. And I think we're going to talk about this a little bit next week, but next episode. But I think our online activities are both a blessing and a curse, right? We get to expand our zone, how many people and who we get to interact with, but at the same time, the number of people we genuinely interact with has shrunken.
That's why I make it a point to get out and start meeting people face to face.
Which is,
and get that, because I need that face to face connection.
yeah, and around your values, or right, for you, it's around church and AA.
Yeah.
It's kind of surrounding your values. For me, I do it a lot with a lot of volunteering, helping people accomplish their goals. If religious or not. Just the other day, I ran out on a Friday night to go help a church get their live stream set back up again because something had happened and it wasn't working. So I went out there and spent a couple hours of my day for no reason other than because George is a nice guy, and of course I'm going to do it. He helps kids. He gathers toys and fixes them and gives them to. Of course I'm going to help him. What kind of heathen wouldn't? What are people talking about? So yeah, you don't have to be religious or even have the same, even if you are religious, have the same faith to appreciate the efforts other people do and to choose to help them out in their path. I think it makes the world a better place when we do little things to help people. And it's an interesting thing. Back in the days when I used to work in an assembly line, we used to have this a saying, the things we did is you would always do one thing to make the next guy's job a little easier. Doesn't matter what it is, just do one thing that makes the next guy's job a little easier. And if everybody does that, guess what? Everybody's job is a little easier. And sometimes it's as simple as making sure you stack your product neatly. So the next guy doesn't have to kind of take a minute to organize it for you. So organize it neatly for him. Take an extra second and organize it neatly. It's not always possible, but sometimes because you're working fast. But do your best to organize it neatly. So the next guy doesn't have to. And the next guy goes, lay it out neatly so the QA guy doesn't have to spend a lot of time going through. He can go through real quick. Do things that make the next person's job easy. And I think having that ethos as a mindset and just how you interact with the world, I think makes everybody's day go a little easier.
Well, it's spreading the love is what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, it's
kindness.
Spreading kindness. You don't have to think about spreading kindness or love. It's better than not. It's better than making somebody's day harder. Do you really feel any better if you make someone's day harder? Really? No, you don't. You may pretend you do, but your day didn't get any better. Your day didn't change one bit. You just made the world a less pleasant place, even if just a little bit. So, isn't it better to make the world a slightly more pleasant place, even if just a little bit, and even if you are the only person that's going to notice? Maybe the person who you were helping doesn't even notice. Maybe they don't notice. Maybe you sweep off somebody's porch and they come home after a busy day and they don't even notice that their porch was swept. So what? You still made the world a better place.
You know.
Yeah. You don't even have to know. You do know, but it's not even relevant. The world's a better place. Nobody has to know. But the world knows. Nature knows. If you're a believer in God, God knows.
So if we all do these little things,
All do these little things, all spread, we're talking about love in this episode, and we all spread our love, leave little bits of love all around the world. It's a hell of a lot better than not. Okay, so what's our questions for tonight? We got parenting. We're starting off with parenting.
okay, let me get into the questions here.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Roblox is ruining my relationship with my son. He is obsessed and he's 8.
Your relationship with your son is evolving, and you are sad, and I understand that. But your relationship with your son was going to evolve. He's 8. He's going to find something that he's going to get obsessed with, and he's going to start spending his time with the things he's obsessed with, because that's the nature of growing up. He's 8. He no longer needs you hand and foot. And that's difficult. It's difficult for mothers. It's difficult for fathers. It's a little less difficult for fathers, but it's hard for us too. But it's not ruining your relationship. Your relationship is evolving.
This is one of the first steps in moving away from you.
Yeah.
Actually, they've been coming for a while.
Yeah.
In case you've noticed,
So here's
from when they start actually walking, they start moving away from you.
So here's the thing. Take a passive interest. Not necessarily an active interest, unless he invites you. If he invites you, take an active interest. Take a passive interest. How's your Roblox going? Just let him tell you about his day. Build that connection, so when he's 12, 13, 14, he's used to telling you about the things he likes to do. You don't have to be interested. Just pretend.
You're going to pretend a lot.
And you don't even have to pretend to be interested. Just be willing to hear him. And be willing to, hey, if he gets a victory, be willing to celebrate it with him. A little bit. Hey, that sounds cool. Here's a cookie. Whatever it is. Congratulations. It's big for him, even if it's not big for you. Enjoy. This is a hard part. This is a hard time for parents. You're going to have to learn how to enjoy their evolution. It's a difficult thing for parents to do, but enjoy their evolution. They're becoming the person you're training them to become. And it's not a linear line, but enjoy it, because you only see it once.
This phase is only going to happen once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This version of them only happens for a short time, because they're evolving so quickly. Enjoy this time, because in 6 months it'll be something else you're enjoying, and be prepared for that. It's my suggestion. Become passively interested.
Okay, here's one that happened to me. Something like this. She took teens to the movies, and one of the boyfriends was there.
Yeah.
It was the friend came along, her daughter, the friend, and the friend set it up that her boyfriend was going to be there. Now, she's 14. She doesn't believe in dating until you're 16. She doesn't want to be a party to this. And she knows it. And she was set her up. She was set up, and she's livid.
Wait, so who's angry?
The mother.
The mother. Well, welcome to everything teens do since the beginning of time. This is just like teenage years, right? This is fairly routine.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, let's be honest here with everything. This is routine teenage behavior. So you deal with it however you deal with your routine teenage misbehavior. That's how you deal with it. Park your anger, because it doesn't solve anything. but she's gonna go try to, have.
The friend.
It's just gonna be because that's what that's this time of their lives. So.
But the thing is, they kept it a secret.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because they knew
Yeah.
she wouldn't approve.
Well, yeah. Welcome to teenagers. What is surprising anybody here? I'm a little confused. Why anybody's confused? What's the confusion? This is what teenagers do, right? This is what 14-year-old teenagers do. If you try to prevent your teen from having a social life, they will sneak around to have a social life. That's just what's going to happen. Welcome to since the beginning of time. And you get to decide how strict you are or not going to be. Use their standard routine punishments or not, depending upon your family, for this kind of thing. You don't overreact because it's fairly routine. But you have standards, so you got to enforce them however you choose to enforce them.
I wouldn't take them to the movies for a while.
Well, yeah. There's one way. But, they're just going to sneak out the house at 2 a.m. So, because it's what they do. When you put restrictions on them that they believe are unfair, they will break them. They just will. And you get to decide what to do about that. My advice is, be consistent with whatever you've been doing. Consistency is key. You may want to reevaluate that 16 thing, and as soon as they're showing enough responsibilities, then they can date. But I get it. The modern world, why you'd put arbitrary 16-year-old line on it. It's easier. But really, at 15 3/4, you can't date, but 2 months, 3 months they can. There is some arbitrariness to that line. So, okay.
Adult men that were angry at mom as teens. Your advice?
Yeah.
Were you angry at your mother when you were a teenager? What young man isn't?
Well, it really depends. Teenagers, it depends what they're angry about.
Okay.
Teenage boys who have, how most people would call it a strong male role model, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a male role model who can pull it off. It's easier for men to pull this off than for, if young men don't have a strong example to teach them how to be a man, then they can become angry because they become directionless. And they're mad at their mother for not giving them the direction they need. They don't understand this, but that's what they're actually angry at. They needed guidance and direction and, stable barriers, and their mother, for whatever reason, wasn't able to provide that. And this is how most men become angry at their mothers. Okay. Right? Men who come from relatively stable households and they don't get angry at their mothers. They don't have anything to be angry at their mothers for. The only time young men get angry at their mothers is when they lacked the direction they needed. And it's not always their mother's fault. It's very hard for a 5'2", 110-pound woman to discipline a 6'1", 200-pound young man. How do you do that? Right? You've either had to put the fear of God in him when he was 2, or you've got nothing, right? And you've got to remember, young men, they are physical in nature. And so that kind of thing actually matters. And so if they don't have the guidance, that's why they get mad. They're not necessarily angry at their mother. Their mother is the person who is safest to be angry at. Well, it's not really anger. they're not angry at a single person. They're angry at circumstance. They're angry at not having the guidance they felt they needed. And they don't even understand it. They're angry at the world most often. And mother's their closest thing to the world. So, yeah. So it's always safest to be angry at mom too, because mom forgives you. So
Yes, we do.
So there's that. All right. I'm not sure I answered that question though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Husband won't watch baby for a night. The baby's 2 months old and bottle fed.
Oh, he's scared. That's actually a simple
He's
one.
gonna break it.
Yeah, he's scared he's gonna break it. That's literally what he's afraid of. And tell him to suck it up, Buttercup. You'll be fine. And you go off and have your night. If he needs to, you call your buddy, call your sister, whatever. Call your mom.
Call your mom.
Yeah. Have someone come over and hang out with you. You'll be fine. But he's not going to learn he's going to be fine until he has to. Yeah. Tell him I told him to suck it up, Buttercup. You'll be all right. But that's fear. And so don't get angry. Understand what it is, that it's fear. And if you can deal with the fear, then you're, and she's already good. A lot of women won't leave a 2-month-old alone with their husband. So she's already ahead of the game.
She's ready for a break.
Yeah.
Just one night. Just one night.
Yeah. She's ahead of the game.
She's been at this,
yeah,
for 8 weeks now in 9 months.
But how many women aren't ready to do that? How many women at 2 months aren't ready to let their husband have it overnight? No, I'm going to take my hands off. Deal with it how you want. I'm out of here. I'm going to go have my break. It takes 3, 4, 6 months oftentimes before women get to there. So she's ahead of the game. She's already willing to, kind of let her husband,
She's not waiting for a crisis to happen to go.
No,
take some time.
And this is just fear. Accept his fear that he's just afraid of breaking the poor thing. And he'd be all right. They bounce. Babies bounce. You're all good. Just don't drop it on its head. It'll be fine. Literally. So, yeah. Okay.
I accidentally locked my 16-month-old in my car. I can't get over the guilt. Okay, now, the car, I read this whole thing. The car was in the shade. She just accidentally left her keys in there. She realized it. She had her cell phone. She got, luckily the fire station was right down the street. They came, popped open the car, 20 minutes max, but she's overprotective. She's hyper safe.
Yeah. And as you will be for a little while. It is perfectly natural to be that way. So let's make sure she understands that it's a perfectly natural reaction. Okay, for her to be. Accidentally locking your car keys and your child in the car. It happens. Just remember, every year we hear tragic stories about people who left their baby in the car.
Yeah, we do.
And so you just, closing the door, locking the door with your keys still in it while you're closing, going into the back door. Oh, I butchered that one. Yeah, but remember, you didn't forget the baby. You just closed the door before you opened the back one. Okay, so it's, these are one of these things that we talked about. Perfection. Don't chase perfection. You didn't do anything disastrous. At absolute worst, you could have smashed the window and gotten the child out relatively safely, right? The child was never in any actual danger.
No, right there the whole time, looking at the baby.
And, mistakes happen. You took care of the issue, and no harm. No, it's a definition of no harm, no foul on this one. Yeah, you're sweating bullets because you locked your baby in the car. Of course you're sweating bullets. But it's no harm, no foul.
You'll never do it again.
Yeah, well.
It'll never happen again.
It'll be one of those, as you grow older, as your child hits 10, 12, it'll be one of the many, many things that the child will have done or almost done. Will have almost happened, or, once you get to the broken arms, the broken fingers, the twisted ankles, and
Oh God! Between the age of 3 and 5, my girls were every 6 months they were in the emergency room. I
Yeah,
swear.
I'm telling you, yeah. So it is. So yeah, it's something every parent has to go through at some point. So welcome to the club. Yeah, I suppose should be my answer. It's just welcome. You will get over it.
It'll be all right.
Yeah,
You'll be okay.
You will get over it. It may take the next,
20
bumper.
years.
May take the next bumper bruise before you start putting it in perspective. But it's the first kind of tragedy as a parent. But of course it's going to flip you out. If you haven't had one before, if your child has never been really sick or you haven't had to deal with some kind of parental tragedy or thing, yeah, it's going to flip you out. I get it. I truly get it. But it ends up in the long list of things. It's not,
one of the stories that you tell.
Yeah, it's a battle story. Okay.
Forcing your teen to break up with significant other after finding out they had sex. Your thoughts? Okay. Her daughter, boyfriend, parents found out the teenagers had sex. So they made her son break up with the daughter.
Okay.
And they're like, we don't get it. Teenagers do this.
Well,
they used protection.
Well, but it doesn't mean it's the smartest decision.
No.
There's lots of reasons other than STDs and pregnancies to be careful about who you have intimacy with. And there's lots of reasons for, a parent to say you're not responsible enough yet for whatever reason. And until you're, able to be responsible, we're using our parental guidelines, as we discussed earlier. Whether I personally agree with them or not, I don't know enough about the children, the family, the moralities that they're teaching. There's too many variables.
I think it's going to happen anyway.
Well, here's the interesting thing. According to statistics, teenagers are having less sex now than ever before.
Really?
Yes. They're rebelling against the free sex thing. Because children rebel. And if free, if that's the cultural norm, they're going to rebel against the cultural norm. That's what teenagers do. They're very rebellious by...
Well, they'll avoid a lot of problems that way.
Yeah. I'm not judging one way or the other. Remember, this is not I'm trying to give advice to somebody who I don't know their personal beliefs, wants, or needs. Their family desires, their cultural norms, their religious norms. I don't know, I don't know if this son has a long history of making good decisions or a long history of making bad decisions. And so they're trying to protect him from his long history of making bad decisions. Don't know. Who knows? You and I, from our experience, during the times we grew up, you kind of surrender to the fact that, yeah, kids are likely going to do this. But that wasn't universal. Lots of parents had success in keeping their children from having intimacy at young ages. It's not a universal thing. Whether it's right or wrong is for individual families to decide. Personally, I think it's more how you go about whatever it is your family morality is, less than the family morality itself. Yeah.
How you go about it?
Yeah. How you go about instilling those values is more important than, the value itself, essentially, because how you instill it will create the conditions for them to follow it or not, or rebel against it. So, but what do I know? I raised 5 kids and they're all different. So what do I know? Okay. We got our last parenting question.
My son is really bright, and I'm terrified. Okay, now for one thing, he's 4, and children are actually if you test them between the age of 1 and 5, they operate on a genius level, and then we send them to school and they start tapering off to tell. Okay, but he is really worried about how he is going to challenge his child. He thinks that this child is just going to he's not going to be able to provide enough educational opportunities for him.
You live in the modern world. Every educational opportunity is at our fingertips. There is no reason for you not to be able to challenge your child, whatever they are interested in. But that's the trick. Whatever they are interested in, you feed them. Doesn't matter what it is, you just feed it. If they express interest in learning something, you feed them that. That's how you deal with a gifted child. You just feed them whatever they're interested in. Your job is, you don't have to be the teacher or the educator or the person to provide it. They'll do it themselves if they're really a genius. All you've got to do is give them the access. Take them to the library, buy them the encyclopedia subscription to online, whatever online tools or tutor, and if you can't afford a tutor, doesn't matter. They'll tutor other kids. And that's how they learn to tutor. So just give them opportunity. Whatever they're interested in, feed them, feed them, feed them, feed them. Don't try and direct it. Because if they're a genius,
that's what he was worried about, putting together a educational program.
Geniuses don't need an educational program. They'll design it themselves. All you've got to do is get out the way and get the stuff that they need. Give them the things that they need. They need books, you get them the books. Take them to the library, you order it on Amazon, whatever it is, right? That's all. You're a facilitator. You don't need to have the curriculum. They'll design the curriculum themselves. They're smart enough. You just have to make sure the world doesn't get in their way. Your job is to clear the path. Whatever their interest is, your job is to clear the path. Remove obstacles they can't. Leave obstacles they can remove. They need that challenge. But obstacles they can't remove, that's your job. That's it. You don't need to be the educator. There's people to educate them. There's people who can do that. They'll find it on their own. Your job is to make sure the path is clear. Yeah. All right, so that's it for our parenting questions tonight. Now, please remember to be careful as you find your tribe, as you look for, your connections. Do it with love and grace. Love and grace will find you. So have a good night. Please remember to love everybody.